Welcome friends. We are going to see ASME Section 9, which is basically welding qualifications. But before going to those welding qualifications, we must see what are various types of documents and what are its use. What do you mean by a referencing document? What do you mean by a referenced document? And so on. So let us see first various documents that we have in place for us. So all these documents basically are divided into four classes. The very first document that I am going to write here is code/standard. Then there is another document in which you have something which is called as recommended practice. Then you have something which is called as specification. So we are going to see what are these documents. So what do they describe? So basically when we start with code/standard, then we must understand that this document are either called as code or a standard. So what is the difference? The same document is called as a code and the same document is also called as a standard. Why? The reason for that is that a standard, when has a legal status, when a standard has got a legal status, it is termed as a code. Okay? So standard, when has a legal status, it is termed as a code. Legal status. So what do you mean by legal status? It is law. It is law. Like in India, we have what is called as Indian Penal Code. It is not called as standard. It is Indian Penal Code, IPC. It is basically law made by the government and passed in the parliament so that it can be made as a law. Another such example is IBR, Indian Boiler Regulation. This is another form of a code. That means in India, if you are manufacturing any boiler, then you have to manufacture using this particular document, and that's why we call it as IBR code. But if somebody wants to use this particular document and manufacture it in Malaysia, Indonesia or Middle East, they will not be using it as a code because their government has not passed a law. They have not passed a law. It is not a regulation to them. So they will be using IBR as a standard for them. They will be using IBR as a standard for them. But for India, it is a law. And that's why it is a code. So you have to get this difference first. So when a standard has got a legal status, it is called as code. Another example that I can quote is ASME Section 8 Division 1. Everybody knows ASME Section 8 Division 1, and basically when we talk about ASME Section 8 Division 1, it is basically a document meant for pressure vessels. But ASME Section 8 Division 1 is a code in USA. But it is a standard in India. But we always use ASME Section 8 Division 1 code, which is actually a standard for us, but it is a code for US. If Indian government tomorrow passes a law, then it will become a code. So that's how you understand difference between standard and a code, as simple as that. So what do this code or standard give you? We will be talking in the reference of, say, a construction code. Let me say that I am going to build something, I am going to manufacture something, and that is the reason why this document is being written down. So what this document really gives you? This document gives you minimum requirements. So in case of construction code, so what are the minimum requirements? Minimum requirements are nothing but the rules that we talk about. Minimum requirements are nothing but the rules. So minimum requirements to build. And when I say build, I am talking about construction. So build and equipment. That equipment might be a pressure vessel, that equipment might be a piping system, that equipment might be a tank, anything. So it gives you rules for constructing an equipment. For constructing an equipment, you require what? You require first thing, that is right material. What is the material that you can use for building this particular pressure vessel or piping or a storage tank, for example? I'm talking about right material. There are many varieties of materials. There are varieties of materials, but all materials are not useful for building a pressure vessel or a piping system or a storage tank. So the very first thing that they give is the right material that you want. And that's why the specifications for materials are given in the code or standard in terms of right material. You need to have a design methodology, and this is where the second part comes. Right design. Right design. So mostly all the construction code, they give how to design the pressure vessel, tank or a piping system. So they give you formulas. So design is very, very important. So right design. Third, since you know right material, right design, now you are ready to fabricate it. So write fabrication. Write fabrication. We have write fabrication. And once you are fabricating something, then you need inspection, you need examination, you need testing. That is also given in this. Right? Inspection, comma, examination. And testing. Let us here understand what do you mean by inspection, what do you mean by examination, and what do you mean by testing. So let us see this first. So when we talk about inspection, for inspection, some entity, some personnel must be there who is called as inspector. So he will be available there to inspect. What does he follow? He follows an inspection and test plan. The inspection and test. Sometimes it is also called as quality assurance plan. So simple definition of inspection is function performed by inspector. Very simple. Function performed by inspector. Who is this inspector? He may be a third party inspector. He may be anyone who is being appointed by a purchaser. Or the owner or the user of this equipment. So he may appoint an individual person. He may appoint an organization to look quality control on his behalf, or he may appoint his own person, his own employee as inspector. So functions performed by inspector is inspection. As simple as that. So if you really follow inspection and test plan, then you will find there are many witness points, there are many review points, there are many hold points. So one must understand the activity and its relation to inspection. Sometimes in case of, say, when the project starts, then in that case there will be review points. So reviewing qualifications of welding personnel or the non-destructive examination personnel is function of the inspector, and it is called as inspection. Witnessing a critical setup of the equipment is function of the inspector and is called as inspection. Seeing and signing off all the documents before a hydrostatic test, which is typically a hold point. So that is function of inspector. So whatever inspector does is inspection, as simple as that, as per ITP, inspection and test plan or quality assurance plan. Whereas when we talk about examination, basically it is a quality control function performed by the manufacturer. By what way? He will perform it by performing non-destructive methods. So examination is using non-destructive methods or techniques. For example, just I will give you just two examples, say PT and UT. So just for example, it is not only the PT or UT, but PT. PT is not penetrant testing now. Even though the short form is PT, knowingly now we will call it as liquid penetrant examination or simple penetrant examination, because it is done using non-destructive methods. UT as ultrasonic examination, RT radiographic examination, MT magnetic particle examination, and so on. Whereas when you talk about testing, then I am talking about using destructive methods. For example, bend. We never call bend as bend examination. Bend test. Tension test. So I am giving two examples. Tension test. Hardness test. Hydrostatic test. So now, since we are learning these documents, we must understand the difference between examination and testing, which ASME has tried to differentiate. So, coming back, code or standard, minimum requirements rules for constructing an equipment. When I say I am using right material, I am using right design, I am using right fabrication, I am using right inspection, examination and testing, what I am doing? This document is giving minimum requirements to build an equipment rightly. That's all. So, you have basically the very first document which talks about this. Now remember, all these documents, they are written by what is called as subject matter experts. I will talk about subject matter experts afterwards. Why do we adopt codes afterwards? But let us go to the second document. Second document is recommended practice. So basically this recommended practice is a document which complements code or standard. Because code or standard will gives you rules, what to do and what to not do. But recommended practice will give you how to do it. So that is the basic difference. So do's and don'ts, what to do and what not to do, are rules. But how to do it is basically given by recommended practice. And these are nothing but good engineering practices used in industry. So generally we call them as R, G, A, E, P. What is RGAEP? RGAEP is recognized, generally accepted engineering practices. Recognized, generally accepted engineering practices. So generally it complements the code or standard in terms how to do it. So for example, if I tell you two such documents, one is API 510. API 510 is a code or standard, but not for construction, it is meant for maintaining the equipment in service. So it is in service code or standard. So it gives you rules for maintaining the equipment which is in service. API 572 is the document. It gives you how to do it. So recommended practices, good engineering practices used in. So these are recommended. What comes from recommended? Good practices. Let us talk about the specification. So when we talk about specification, we are talking about a specific requirement, remember. So it comes from specific. The type of documents that you can find in specification is typically a material specification. You have a project specification. You have a purchase specification. You may have a technical specification also. You may have a technical specification. So these documents typically give us specific requirements, which may be over and above the code and standard. If I say that this gives us specific requirements, so document addressing specific requirements. Document addressing specific requirements. Document addressing which may be. over, and above, over and above. Code oblique standard. For example, I'll just tell you that various materials or variety of materials are specified by the code oblique standard. But if you want to use any material for general purpose, then you can buy as rolled material for general application. But if you want to use it for specific application, for low temperature application, then you need to have normalized plate and not as rolled plate. Because as rolled plate will not be useful for. Now, right material is given by code of standard. Now it depends upon the owner user's application to specify which material is to be used depending upon its application. So where do the owner user specify? They specify this in specification. Like they have a project specification in which general requirements about the projects are given, at which code or standard to follow, and what are specific requirements. They are also given in the project specification. Sometimes you have purchase specification. When you order any plate, you specifically order your application plate material. You may have a material specification which specifies the properties of materials, mechanical properties, chemical properties of the material, and what are the delivery conditions. So this is specification. When you are looking at these three documents, you must always give importance to these three words: shall, should, and may. So you have shall, should, and may. Whenever in any of these documents, a word shall will come, it denotes mandatory requirements. So it is mandatory. You have to comply with the requirement. So another word for that is must. When you have should, then usually it is recommended. Or advised. Is recommended or advised. So if you follow this, it will be good. But not necessary to comply. May is something which is option given to shall. So it is option given to shall, because shall is mandatory. Sometimes you may give an alternative to shall. For example, ultrasonic examination may be used in lieu of radiography. So what was mandatory? Radiography examination was mandatory. But now they have given under certain conditions you may use ultrasonic. So it is an option to shall. So these three words must be used with their literal meaning. So one must understand this. I think very simple. So these are typical documents that we are talking about. And if you try to define that which one takes the priority, then I would say the priority is taken by specification first. The highest status of the document will be specification, then the code or standard, and then the recommended practice. So though I have written it in this manner, this is first, this is second, this is third in terms of priority, in terms of prioritizing. Now why do we follow this documents? Why do we adopt codes or standards? So this is a very good question. So why do we adopt? Why we adopt code or standard? Remember, that there are two C's and two S. 2C and 2S. 2 C's and 2 S. So I'll always tell you that there are 2 C's and 2 S. Why we adopt? Why we use this code or standard? 2 C's. The very first C is what we call as collective knowledge. Collective knowledge of SME. SME is subject matter expert. SME, subject matter expert. Whereas when anything is formulated or written down by subject matter experts, those experts are such that somebody is expert in design, somebody is expert in materials, somebody is expert in testing, somebody is expert in examination. So all these people, when they come together and they write down or formulate the code or standard, it gives something what is called as credibility. So whatever they write has some credibility. Like for example, if you have good amount of money in your bank, you are said to be credit worthy. In the same manner, the rules formulated by subject matter experts are having credibility. It is also dependent on 2S. The very first S is safety. All the codes and standards whether building an equipment or maintaining an equipment, is based on safety. Safety of what? Plant, then the personnel and the equipment. And now we have environment also. So plant, safety of plant, equipment, personnel, and environment. And environment. So prime important factor while you are formulating code or standard is safety. Whenever you build an equipment, it should be safe for continuous operation. Or even if it fails, it should fail safely. So you have what is called a safe fail safe approach in design. That's why safety is of prime importance. The second S comes from the word standard. So if I say that follow this code or standard, I am in fact doing what? I am standardizing. So standardization is second S. That's why we say that why we adopt codes or standards, why they are famous, because of two C's and two S. So we are going to see one of the document called ASME Section 9, which is related to welding qualifications. So now it is time to introduce ASME Section 9 at this point of time. So I'll just save this slide so that this can be part of our notes. So let us go and see ASME Section 9, which is a document for welding qualifications. So let us introduce what is ASME Section 9. So this is what is ASME Section 9. You can see ASME Section 9. It is qualification standard for welding, brazing and fusing. The ASME Section 9 is qualification standard for welding, brazing and fusing. This is typically ASME, BPVC. The long form of BPVC is boiler and pressure vessel code. Boiler and pressure vessel code. So the very first point that one must understand is that this code or standard, ASME Section 9, is a referenced code or standard. Now it is reference code or standard meant for welding, brazing or fusing, out of which we are going to see only welding qualifications. So I would write here reference code and standard for welding qualifications. So when you say welding qualifications, what do you mean by that? When you say about welding qualifications, you mean to say about two things. One, is what is called as welding procedure qualifications. Welding procedure qualification. So one is procedure. And second is performance. Second is performance. Second is performance. So in short, when I say welding procedure qualification or when I say welding performance qualification, what do I mean? When I say procedure qualification, I am talking about mechanical properties of weldment. Of weldment. So whatever I deposit as a weld material or weldment, I am talking about this. But when I say performance, welding performance, I am seeing skill of welder to deposit sound weld. Remember, sound weld. So the skill of the welder to deposit sound weld. So welding qualification is this procedure and performance. We are going to see more details on this after some time, but this is what section 9 is. Let us talk something about the reference. Now when you are talking about reference, I am drawing an arrow from here to here. So arrow goes towards reference document. So somebody who is referring this document is called as referencing. So you have referencing code or standard and you have referenced code or standard. So referencing is nothing but the one who is the parent, who is referring to another document, and that is called as reference document. So I say that ASME Section 8 Division 1, ASME Section 8 Division 1 is a referencing code or standard, wherein when it gives you about right fabrication methods, then it tells you that while you are welding, which document you have to refer is Section 9. And that's why it is referenced. So in short, if I say referencing, for example, ASME Section 8 Division 1. So it is a referencing document. In welding, it refers to reference. So referencing code or standard always refers to a referenced code or standard. So you must understand these two things as well. Let us go ahead. Since this is a ASME document, it revises every 2 years. It revises every 2 years and there is no addenda in between. So it gets revised every 2 years. Generally, you talk about the publication date, then it is usually July is the publication date. So the document that I am showing here, is basically 2019 document. 2019 document. So if you see, then you can see here what is the publication date? It is July 1st, 2019. July 1st, 2019. So every 2 years means the next revision is 2021, July. So already it has come. So it revises every 2 years. If it gets published on 1st of July 2019, when it becomes mandatory, becomes effective. Generally for all ASME and all other codes or standards, generally effectivity is 6 months after the date of publication. So becomes effective becomes effective 6 months So when I say effective, I would say mandatory. When I say effective, I would say mandatory. So when you have to use this edition, becomes becomes effective mandatory 6 months after date of publication. Six months after date of. That means it publishes on July. So July, August, September, October, November and December. 6 months finished on 31st December. So it becomes mandatory on 1st of January, the very next year. The next point here is all clauses of ASME Section 9 start with QW. So if I say clearly, because we are going to see only welding qualifications, I would say all clauses of ASME Section 9 for welding. So I'll write that as well. For welding, start with QW. The word Q is meant for qualification, of course, and W is meant for welding. Since this document is also meant for brazing and fusing, so you can imagine what would be the starting of brazing. It is QB. For fusing, it is QF. As simple as that. The most important point is the arrangement of this particular document. Arrangement of ASME Section 9. When you talk about arrangement of ASME Section 9, you are seeing some articles. And we have some description. All these articles are numbered in Roman numbers. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4, Article 5. So you have such 5 articles in welding qualifications. The very first article, Article 1, tells you about the general requirement. There is another one article which is QG. Which tells you about general requirements for all welding brazing and fusing. But Article 1 of welding gives you general requirements for welding. Article 2. Article 2 gives you procedure qualification requirements. It gives you procedure qualification requirements. Article 3 gives you performance qualification requirements. It gives you performance qualification requirements. Article 4 gives you data. Data for what? It can be used for Article 3, Article 2, Article 1. Data in the form of what? In the form of welding variables. So all welding variables are defined. They are defined in the data. Welding variables. Not only welding variables, but you have tables. You have tables. Then you have figures or sketches. Figures for what? How to take out specimen for bend test. How to take out specimen for tension test. What is position? 1G, 2G, 3G. So all figures are given. Tables, generally F numbers, A numbers. Then what is the range of capital T, that is range of base metal thickness. All these have some tables. We have tables for procedure qualification as well as performance qualification also. So data is given. Data is given. Article 5. Article 5 gives you standard WPS. It is also called as SWPS, standard. For certain materials, for certain range of thickness, ASME and AWS have developed standard welding procedure specifications. This can be used for certain materials with certain thickness range without doing a procedure qualification. Without doing a procedure qualification. But using that procedure qualification, you have to carry out performance, that means you have to carry out the welder qualification is mandatory. But procedures for certain materials, for certain range of thickness, they have developed standard. There is nothing much in section 5. So really speaking, we will just go through section 5, but not in detail. But we will be going to 1, 2, 3 and 4 in detail in order to understand the application of ASME Section 9. Let us correlate the clause and the articles. So if I say clause, clause number, then it starts with QW, right? So I will write here QW. All clauses of Article 1 will start with number 1, XX. All clauses of Article 2 will start with QW 2XX, QW 3XX. QW 4XX, QW 5XX. QW 5XX. So the moment I say QW 204 clause, just for example, QW 204 clause, then I would say it is pertaining to procedure qualification. The moment I say QW 451, then it is in data. The moment I say QW 153, it is in general data. So this is how, in a methodological manner, they have arranged this process. So let us see those in the code or standard and then identify their importance. So let us go to the code or standard and see them there. So we are seeing basically ASME Section 9. What does it say? It says that it is an international code. So qualification standard for welding, brazing and fusing procedures, welders, brazers and welding, brazing and fusing operators. So how do they use a methodology in which they say that this international code or standard was developed under procedures accredited as meeting the criteria for American national standards, and it is an American national standard. So it has been approved by NC. It has been approved by NC. The standard committee that approved the code or standard was balanced to assure that individuals from competent, that's where I say subject matter experts, so that the individuals from competent and concerned interests have had an opportunity to participate. So there were subject matter experts. The proposed code or standard was made available for public review. So this is how it is generally published. So it is given for public review and comments that provides an opportunity for additional public input from industry, academia, regulatory agencies and public at large. So this is how codes or standards are being published. So let us see table of contents. So you have various list of sections for ASME BPVC. Then you have basically the personnel here. You have various committees. Then you have summary of changes. You have summary of changes where what is changed. Then, as I said, it starts with part QG, general requirements, which talks about the scope and the definitions. So you have QG 100 and QG 109. Then comes part QW, which is welding, which I have written on the board. So part QW, which is related to welding, and you have Article 1, welding general requirements. Article 2, welding procedure qualifications. Article 3, welding performance qualifications. And you have Article 4, welding data. This talks about variables, techniques, base metal groupings, and everything. And then you have graphics. Graphics in the sense that you have various figures. And then it talks about Article 5, standard welding procedure specifications. So these are basically 5 articles that we talk about. So let us quickly see Article 5. Article 5. So that what is given in Article 5 can be easily seen. So we have Article 5, Standard Welding Procedure Specification, SWPSS. So what is the very first sentence that is given here is the standard SWPS listed in mandatory appendix C are acceptable for construction. So you can the SWPS listed in mandatory appendix E are acceptable for construction in which the requirements of ASME boiler and pressure vessel code section 9 are specified. The second important clause here is this. Says that this SWPS are not permitted for construction where toughness testing of the WPS is required by the construction code. So in general, when we see what are various tests and examinations, we'll see that generally tension test and bend test is carried out. To find out mechanical properties of the weldment. But when impact test is required for the weldment, then for various materials, it will give us various results. And that's why this is not being used. So you have adoption of SWPSS. They say prior to use, before you use, prior to use, the organization that will be responsible for and provide operational control. So operational control is very well required. Over production welding shall comply with the following for each SWPS, and they give you a list. If you are adopting SWPS, then one must use this operational control. Then what should be there? Enter the name of the organization on the SWPS. An employee of that organization shall sign and date SWPS. The applicable code section, that is section 8, 31.1, etc. That means referencing code sections or any other fabrication document contract specification that must be followed during welding shall be listed on SWPS. The organization shall weld and test one groove weld test coupon following that SWPS. That is very, very important. And then they have given what is your groove design, the specification type and grade of base material welded, and so on. And then it says, very importantly, the coupon shall be visually examined in accordance with QW 302.4. When I say QW 302.4, we are talking about performance qualification, and mechanically tested in accordance with QW 302.1 or volumetrically examined in accordance with QW 302.2. If visual examination, volumetric examination or any test specimen fails to meet the required acceptance criteria, test coupon shall be considered as failed and a new test coupon shall be welded before the organization may use the SWPS. So once the first qualification is done, then you can see here QW 520. Once an SWPS has been demonstrated by doing this, about additional SWPS that are similar to the SWPS that was demonstrated may be used without further demonstration. Such additional SWPSs shall be compared to SWPS that was used for demonstration, and the following limitations shall not be exceeded. A change in welding process, a change in P number, a change from as welded to heat treated conditions, a change from gas shielded flux cored wire, solid wire, and so on. So A to H are limitations. If these limitations, you cannot use it for as a standard welding procedure specification. We have a form UW 485 for just suggested form QW 485 for documenting the welding variables and test results of the demonstration is provided in non-mandatory appendix. Then you can use this standard SWPS. So let us see this form as well as appendix E also. We have welding forms QW 485. So I'll just show you QW 485. So this is QW 485. So here you can see identification of SWPS demonstration, date of demonstration, demonstration of all variables. So one has to sign standard welding procedure specification. Let us go to appendix E. This mandatory appendix is permitted SWPS. They have not given anything except they have given the document numbers. Proceeded metal arc welding SMAW, combination of JTAW and SAW, flux core arc welding. So carbon steel primarily pipe applications. Austenitic stainless steel plate and pipe. So you have typically this as standard. Their designations are given on the right hand side. So that's what we had seen about QW 5, Article 5, 5XX. And now it is time to start with why procedure qualification is required, why performance qualification is required, and then see what are the tests and the examinations and then we will start with Article 1. So let us stop here and in the next session we would start with Article 1. So thank you very much and see you in the next session.